Billions of dollars worth of gas, once destined for the United States, of course. Now they're heading straight across the Pacific, to Japan, South Korea, China, and perhaps directly into the hands of Asia's new energy order. The white Ottawa is smiling, and the global energy game just got a new player with a bold strategy. This isn't just about trade, it's about power. For decades, Canada played a familiar role, the quiet, dependable energy warehouse for its southern neighbor. Pipelines flowed south, contracts were stable, everyone was comfortable. But that era, it's ending. According to recent trade data, Canada is now slashing its gas exports to the US, not randomly, not temporarily, but systematically. Instead, it's redirecting massive volumes of LNG to Asia. And this isn't just a logistical shift, it's a statement. Canada is no longer playing support, it wants a seat at the table, and it's willing to change the entire map to get there. So, what triggered this? Let's rewind. July 1st, 2025. A quiet morning at Kitimat Port, British Columbia. On the surface, just another shipment. But this time, something was different. A liquefied natural gas carrier, GasLog Glasgow, quietly pushed off the dock carrying 2.66 million tons of LNG. Its destination? Well, not Chicago, not Michigan, not even the Gulf Coast. Instead, Yokohama, Busan, Shanghai. For the first time in more than 3 decades, Canada had exported LNG directly by sea to the world. The symbolic message was, crystal clear. The Pacific door is now open. Canada isn't bound by cross-border pipelines anymore. Last year alone, 2024, Canada pumped nearly 8.8 billion cubic feet of gas per day into the US. That earned Ottawa around $8 billion annually. But following a rapid tax shift and trade policy shakeup, that lucrative stream is drying up, and it's not a leak, it's a reroute. And at the heart of this pivot, well, it's a belief that Canada doesn't need to be tethered to one customer, not anymore. The construction of the 670-kilometer coastal GasLink pipeline, linking the Montney Basin's vast reserves to Kitimat's liquefaction terminal, wasn't an overnight gamble. It was a decade-long master plan. The final push, however, it came from Washington. In March 2025, the U.S. imposed a 10% tariff on Canadian energy exports, part of a broader 25% tax hike on everything from timber to steel. For Canada, it wasn't just economic pressure, it felt like a betrayal. Before the tariffs, Canada sold its gas to the U.S. at bargain basement prices. U.S. domestic gas cost around $3.74 per MMBTU. Canadian gas? Just 71 cents. The U.S. got cheap energy, Canada got steady income. But after the tariffs, that price advantage evaporated. Suddenly, Canadian gas wasn't cheap and wasn't welcome. So, Ottawa pivoted, fast. LNG carriers replaced pipeline valves, export terminals roared to life, and within 3 months Canada's first shipment set sail. No drama, no speeches, just quiet, strategic execution. Meanwhile, in the U.S., northern states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota began scrambling. These regions had relied on Canadian gas for decades. Now, they're facing tight supplies, rising costs, and harsh winters ahead. Energy companies are being forced to renegotiate contracts, sometimes at 30% higher prices. Ironically, Washington's attempt to strong-arm Canada back to the negotiating table may have done the opposite. Instead of crawling back, Canada leapt forward, toward Asia, toward independence, and toward a new global role. And in Asia, they welcomed Canada with open arms. Japan, South Korea, China, they didn't hesitate. Because these economies don't just want LNG, they need it. Japan's energy system relies on imported gas for over 80% of its electricity. Since the Fukushima disaster, nuclear power has dwindled. Stability is everything. South Korea isn't waiting either. Seoul is expanding LNG storage by 50% over the next decade as part of a long-term move away from coal. Canada offers a rare combination: clean energy, predictable delivery, and lower transportation costs. And China? It's moving fast and quiet. After energy shortages in the winters of 2022 and 2023, Beijing began aggressively locking in long-term LNG deals, some stretching to 2040. Despite political tensions with Ottawa, China is choosing pragmatism over politics. Why? Because Canadian LNG is reliable, modern, and cleaner than most global alternatives. The numbers speak volumes. Phase 1 of the LNG Canada project alone can ship 14 million tons of LNG per year. Phase 2 will double that to 28 million, putting Canada in the same league as Qatar, the United States, Russia, and Australia. And, it's not just about volume, it's about values. Canada's LNG export system runs on 100% clean hydroelectric power. Its liquefaction facilities, featuring Japanese and American technology, are among the lowest emission systems in the world. While other exporters rely on coal or oil for compression, Canada is betting on green gas. That's not just good optics, it's good business, especially in Asia, where ESG standards and carbon-neutral goals are becoming deal-breakers. Even the logistics are smarter. LNG shipments from Kitimat to East Asia take just 10 days, half the time it takes from the U.S. Gulf Coast via the Panama Canal. That's a savings of up to $20 million per trip. Multiply that by 170 shipments a year, and the advantage becomes obvious. So, what does this mean for the U.S.? First, it means the old pipeline monopoly is over. For decades, Canada had one real export route, south. The infrastructure, the contracts, the pricing, it all favored the U.S. But now, with a functioning West Coast system and ships sailing to Asia, the dynamic is shifting. Second, it means the United States might lose its indirect grip on Canadian gas. Previously, liquefied natural gas from Canada often flowed through the United States before hitting global markets. That middleman role is now under threat. Even liquefied natural gas terminals in Texas and Louisiana are feeling the heat. If Canadian gas is cheaper, cleaner, and faster, Asian buyers will take it. Third, it's forcing American companies to adapt. With Canadian supply tightening, domestic gas prices are rising. States that once depended on cheap Canadian imports are looking at expensive alternatives, either costly domestic drilling or liquefied natural gas imports from places like Qatar and Norway. Some analysts call it the cost of miscalculation. Others call it the price of protectionism. But either way, this isn't just about economics, it's about trust. Canada has long been one of the US's most reliable energy partners. But now, after decades of quiet support, it's made a bold move without fanfare. Just action. And that silence, it's deafening, a quiet farewell. But the story doesn't end with trade routes and tariffs. Because, behind Canada's LNG success lies a deeper story, one about people, power, and partnership. Unlike many energy megaprojects, LNG Canada isn't built on land taken from indigenous communities, it's built with them. Over $5.8 billion in contracts have gone directly to First Nations businesses, especially the Haisla Nation in Kitimat. Indigenous groups weren't just consulted, they were made partners, with ownership stakes and long-term benefits. It's a rare model in energy development, one where cultural preservation meets economic opportunity. Canada didn't just build a pipeline, it built trust. So what's the bigger picture? Canada's energy strategy is no longer defined by dependency, it's defined by diversification. No longer just a silent supplier to one market, it's now a global contender, especially in Asia, where demand is surging, and partners want reliability without political baggage. Meanwhile, the United States faces a choice. Does it double down on tariffs and lose more allies? Or does it recalibrate, reopen dialogue with Ottawa, improve competitiveness, and strengthen its own LNG infrastructure to stay in the race? Because one thing is certain, the game has changed. And those who adapt fastest will lead. Canada has bet big. It's built the infrastructure, secured the partners, delivered the first shipment, and done it all while staying quiet, clean, and strategic. But is this just the beginning? Or will global giants like Qatar and the US fight back and reclaim their dominance? One thing is clear, Canada is no longer just flowing south, it's sailing west with purpose. And in this new LNG era, every shipment is